Hello.
Hi,
Hi,
we're
Tia.
back.
We are back. At least I hope so, and that people can see and hear us. Hello everyone. And Tia, where are you at the moment?
I am back in Croatia for some Easter holidays. Yeah, some family time.
That's great. I hope you enjoy it. And I mean, without further ado, let's start with the 12th episode. And maybe you should go back a bit here. It's number 12, and
It's
the
number
stage is
12.
yours.
We are doing some AI strategy mapping. Before that, I, of course, wanted to point once again that we are now on Spotify as well, and that we also managed to upload our latest episode there. We will also upload this one. So, subscribe for all those who prefer listening while doing other stuff around the house. And now we can actually get to my rant. My biggest hope for this one is that you all will have at least half as much fun as I had preparing this, because I had a lot of fun preparing this. So here it goes. You know how they say that dogs resemble their owners, or maybe it's the other way around? I'm not sure. Well, apparently it works the same way with people and their lawsuits. Who would have thought, right? How did I figure that one out? Well, clearly because Musk sued OpenAI. And to quote the New York Times and put it very mildly, the lawsuit raises some unusual legal points. So to begin today's rant, I thought, why don't we all together analyze the lawsuit that reads something between a Musk fan fiction novel, a manifesto, and a sci-fi novel. I still do appreciate that there were some valuable pieces of information in there, if these are in fact facts and not confabulations or hallucinations. For those that get the pun, all puns intended. But let's give Musk the benefit of the doubt. So the two main points in the lawsuit are: one, OpenAI is supposed to be a non-profit corporation inventing stuff for all our benefit, which it's currently no longer really doing. This purpose of the corporation is also clearly stated in their founding agreement, which it on the slide. Resulting technology will benefit the public when applicable. Perfect. That sounds very convincing. Oh, and of course, the organization is not organized for the private gain of any person. That just happened to be the lucky coincidence of founding it. The second key point is that everything from GPT-4 is already to be categorized as AGI, or artificial general intelligence, and can therefore not be licensed to Microsoft, which is currently being licensed. I mean, moreover, Microsoft, again, according to Musk, seems to think that they have IP over everything. Of course, there are also no references for all the quotes in the lawsuit, but, what you gotta do? We said we'll believe him, right? Okay, so far so bad. We have the poor little OpenAI, which is not that poor and kind of sleazy, and we have the big Kraken, Microsoft, which is threatening to eat the poor little sleazy OpenAI. Okay. But to go to the important stuff. So how does Musk know that we have an AGI? Well, because not only is GPT-4 better in reasoning than average humans, but it also scored an astonishing 77% on the advanced sommelier examination. Seriously? An advanced sommelier examination? Now, I was very confused by this. So, I went investigating, and apparently the examinees undergo written exams based on wine types history, modern applications, and current events in the industry. And ChatGPT, for all those who are wondering, did not attempt the practical element of the qualification, presumably for the fear of waterlogging, or rather wine logging the servers. But it did ace all three levels of the theory papers. Now, I'm not really sure how to respond to this. By this, meaning both, the sensationalist claim that ChatGPT is better than average sommeliers, or to the fact that this is somehow part of a serious lawsuit. Anyhow, ChatGPT's exquisite wine history, among other things, concerned Musk, who was then supposed accused of being a speciesist, meaning he preferences humans over other species. Now, that is one tough accusation if you ask me, but Musk didn't take it personally. No, no, he went straight to Obama and tried to save the world. Super surprisingly, Obama did not enact a law straight after the conversation. Yeah, weird. I know legislation can be so confusing. But having no other choice, Musk decided to fight, alone against the dark forces. And set an ultimatum stating that he will no longer be a fool who is essentially providing free funding to a startup. Um, Despite that, Sam, according to another quote, remained enthusiastic about the nonprofit structure! Exclamation point. I really imagine Sam like a puppy sometimes. Anyways, Musk's narrative basically boils down to Gollum putting the ring on his hand for the first time. For all those who don't get the metaphor, go watch Lord of the Rings. I will not waste time on it. However, what interests me the most in this story, besides the whole ego-tripping speciesism discussion, is actually the nonprofit debate. Why? Because Musk's lawsuit this time kind of accurately maintains that investing in nonprofits make the investments tax deductible. Why in quotation marks? Well, because they are not really supposed to be investments. They are supposed to be donations to a charitable organization that is not supposed to be making any profit out of it. And I mean, OpenAI basically explains their decision, a business decision of incorporating as a charitable organization in their policy, claiming that this was the only way of ensuring AGI is developed for the benefit of humankind. However, fairly quickly, they realized that capital is needed, but benefiting the humankind is also kind of important. So they decided to devise a corporate structure to achieve both, in a kind of non-profit washing type of situation. They had to keep the OpenAI brand. Anyways, this is, by the way, how their devised structure looks like according to them. I took the liberty of trying to figure out how this devised structure actually looks like, and I think that the word devised is a very appropriate term for whatever this is. Um, Anyways, a couple of things to unpack with the whole nonprofit organization. So first, the IRS requirements to be registered as a nonprofit under the 501(c)(3. You have to pursue one of the exempt purposes. Great, they kind of do scientific research. Let's say that they fulfill that one. However, it's clearly no longer the case that none of the earnings go to private shareholders or individuals. Secondly, although their primary activities still don't include political campaigning, they also have at least 2 registered lobbying entities, one in the US and one in the EU. And thirdly, they most certainly pursue at least partially Microsoft's private interests, those being 49% of one of the entities. So they should probably be imposed this excise tax, if you ask me, but fine. And one of the most interesting parts of the lawsuit is the prayer for relief, which comes in the form of asking a court to adjudicate whether GPT-4 is AGI. Yes, a court is absolutely well equipped and well positioned to make such a judgment. I am really excited how this one will turn out. But as we all know, there are 2 sides to every story, and OpenAI recently shared theirs, including some shady Elon's emails regarding the whole profit and AGI debate. And after reading those emails, to be quite honest, it seems more like Musk got offended because they didn't want to use Tesla as their quote unquote cash cow, but had no problem partnering up with Microsoft for the same purpose. Anyhow, we seem to be surrounded by kindergartners who also happen to rule the world, people. I am having a lot of fun, though, still. So the whole thing is now at a point where Elon claimed in a tweet he'll drop the lawsuit if OpenAI changes its name to Closed AI. And as brilliantly tweeted by one of the respondents to this tweet, yes, this was a real mic drop moment for Musk. Side note, and while we are still at the Musk topic, allegedly Musk's first experimental Neuralink patient tweeted using just his brain, was then banned from Twitter for being presumed a bot and then reinstated afterwards. Um, I don't even know what to respond to this. And since we are still at Musk, and that always gets me thinking about Tesla, and that gets me thinking about self-driving cars, Waymo self-driving robo taxis are now officially approved for some highways in LA and Bay Area, meaning they will soon be roaming around at 65 miles per hour. Spokesperson Julia Elena said that the expansion will be careful and incremental, with no immediate plans to extend. Why ask for the extension then? I'm not sure. But then I wanted to mention, or could not mention, this jewel. So a couple of months ago, a cruise vehicle dragged a woman 20 feet along the road. Yes, it was Cruise, it wasn't Waymo, but still, the cynical me had to, just cover all the details. Not to say I wouldn't write in them, God knows I did try, but my app approval took too long. But, California, I will be back and hopefully not dragged 20 meters across the road. The dramas are really all unfolding simultaneously and at high velocity. And it's kind of getting dizzy in here. So let's take a moment, break, and appreciate, and God knows this is a rare occurrence, China for a second. So not only does China have specialized internet courts, but those courts actually make judgments, and those judgments happen to be reasonable. Crazy. Some of them even issue translations, so I hope I'll see this one. But anyways, China ruled on a case of infringement of copyright by an AI-generated service, which provided the first ever judicial answer to the question of whether AI service providers can be liable for their models' infringements. The answer being yes. So the Guangzhou Internet Court ruled that an AI company had infringed the plaintiff's copyright to the Ultraman works and should bear relevant civil liability in the amount of 10,000 yuan, or approximately $1,400. So go China, I guess. And by the way, another China, is that U3 question marks moment that also happened recently. Apparently, not only are they actually enforcing things, but they are also supporting SMEs and actually supporting them by giving them vouchers for computing costs. And surprisingly, not just writing a 250-page document mentioning them in one recital and approximately 3 paragraphs. Yes, the AI Act, I am talking about you again. So in the AI Act, as opposed to actually providing some support, we have, for instance, this paragraph stating that the specific interests and needs of the SME providers shall be taken into account when setting the fees for conformity assessments. Other than that, they also have some simpler technical documentation to submit. Cool, sounds great, very helpful, guys. I'm sure this will absolutely boost innovation in Europe, which appears to be the goal of the AI Act. And by the way, just since we are still at the China topic, there was also an incident involving one ex-Google engineer who was charged with stealing AI trade secrets while working with Chinese companies. Interesting stuff. So the indictment alleges that Ding, hired by Google in 2019, had access to confidential information, which he then uploaded in the form of hundreds of files into his own personal Google Cloud account. So not only did he steal from them, but he also used their own service to do it. It's just all brilliant. Within weeks of the theft, Ding was offered the position of chief technology officer at a tech company in China, where he then frequently visited and participated in investor meetings and capital raising. He also then separately founded his own China-based startup. Anyways, the prosecutors say that Ding didn't disclose either affiliation to Google. Shocking. 3 days after he resigned, Google officials learned that he had presented as a CEO at an investor conference in Beijing. Awkward. Officials then also reviewed surveillance footage showing that another employee had actually scanned Ding's access badges at the Google building in the US while he was actually in China. Great stuff. Perfect moment also to reminisce of the fact that Meta has, more than 80,000 software developers based in China. I see no problem there. Privacy is great. National security is great. We are all doing great. It's only slightly problematic when someone tries to steal from them, but then they only figure it out 5 years later. So it's all good. But those are the American and Chinese way of doing AI. So maybe we should try the Italian way. As apparently there is an Italian way of doing AI, quite literally, according to a quote by their Prime Minister Maloney. So far, it appears to mostly consist out of investigating OpenAI and opening up various funds. That's a shame. I would much rather, be drinking an Aperol Spritz and eating pasta somewhere with the Italian AI. But fine, okay, we can't always get what we want, I guess. Um, Anyways, apropos weird claims and also very appropriate for my next segment, a very important reading recommendation for you all. It's slightly older, from all the way back in 2006, but the conclusions are very much universally applicable and time neutral. So, a warm recommendation, no, actually, scratch that, a warm mandatory reading for you all. Um, on Bullshit by Harry G. Frankfurt. And speaking of bullshit, we now apparently know who is actually behind Biden's robocalls. Plot twist, it's a political consultant working for the rival Democrat candidate, Dean Phillips. And no, no, no. In case that you were thinking that's why he was doing it, to sabotage the campaign. No, that is absolutely not why he did it. Cross his heart and hope to die. He simply wanted to demonstrate how easy and dangerous the use of AI in elections can be. He also deleted all evidence of the transactions and emails, but that also has nothing to do with anything. He stands firmly by his actions. And another interesting fact. He used a New Orleans magician, Paul Carpenter, to, generate these voice recordings based on a pre-prepared script, as the magician was down on his luck. And so he paid the poor magician $150 to conduct a felony. I swear, you just couldn't make stuff like this up. And no wonder then that the tech, together with all their issues, are still deemed as far more competent and ethical, according to Edelman Trust Barometer for this year. Yeah, I'm not shocked. I don't know. Still, most people, according to the study, seem to think that we are kind of going too fast. So at least we can all agree on something. And speaking of elections and governments, the ones in the US are rapidly approaching, and Google decided to not risk making any more boo-boos with Gemini, especially when the stakes are particularly high. So much so that Gemini will not only no longer answer questions such as who is Donald Trump, but also questions such as how to register to vote, where the voters will still be referred to Google search. Now to, not pose any questions of my own, I will just quote Daniel Susser from the Cornell University that asked, if Google's generative AI tools are too unreliable informing on democratic elections, why should we trust them in other contexts? What does that say about Google's long-term plans to incorporate generative AI across its services? Great questions, Daniel. I would love to know the answer. But speaking some more of governments, there have also been some cool regulatory updates. First of all, one major announcement, it's commencing. Brasilo is here. So Mexico proposes groundbreaking AI regulation bill, which is not really that groundbreaking if you ask me, but okay, sure. So the bill features extraterritorial applicability. It follows a risk-based approach with designated unacceptable risk, high risk, and low risk requirements, and mandatory prior authorization for high-risk systems. It also introduces 10% annual income fines. None of this sounds familiar at all. One final legal development that I'll mention, there has been yet another bill introduced in the US regarding, this time, a bipartisan federal law, which would govern the federal use of AI systems. It's called Federal AI Governance and Transparency Act. Quite disappointed by the fact that there is, again, no cool title. And guys, you know why I'm disappointed? Well, I'm just making a suggestion here, but how about Federal AI Governance, Transparency, and Human Centric Use Act, or AKA the FATE Act? I mean, FATE? Seriously? That's like really opportunity missed. But okay. The key provisions of the unfortunately not FATE Act include defining federal standards for responsible AI use, as well as additional public accountability measures and some other stuff, but these two are particularly important. Why? Well, because in the meantime, the US military, guessing they won't be subject to the unfortunately not Fate Act, anyways, is playing around with chatbots who are now developing war strategies, still only in games, thank God. Apparently, the bots do have more casualties, but they still manage to complete the mission. Talk about some dangerous mistakes to make. On the plus side, hey, they won't have PTSD because of it. So, good luck, lads, I guess. And finally, to finish off with, again, my personal hell this month, and thanks a lot, Peter, for forwarding me this. I definitely did not need it in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ruin all of your afternoons or mornings the same way Peter ruined mine. Meet Calamara AI. So to quote their own commercial, Calamara is like your tech-savvy BFF for STI checks. Snap a pic and our AI does the heavy lifting, analyzing for visual signs of STIs, being sexually transmitted infections. Translation, it's an AI app for scanning if your one-night stand to be also has an STD. Talk about a real mood setter. Yo, can you consent to me taking a picture to check if you have STDs? Anyways, they claim it's budget friendly because you'll need to go to the doctors less. And unless Calamara hallucinates your one night stand sexual non infectiousness, that is. Also, not sure what to do with consent of the person being checked. Freely given? Well, it's debatable if you ask me, but okay. Anyways, they are rolling out for free and for a limited time only. So, if that's something you're interested in, quickly go to your app stores and download the app. In the meantime, for me, this is just, I don't know, deeply disturbing. And honestly, I'm scared of even thinking what comes after this, but now we can all be deeply disturbed together. And that's it for my rant. We can switch to the serious news section.
Thank you, Thea. That was insightful, to say the least. It is my honor and my pleasure to introduce you to some also similarly serious news. And one of this is a new patent by Google. Google's patent is to scrape radio stations for AI training. And because they could provide a pool of useful data, but also it may face a kind of a copyright dilemma. Who would have thought of that? That was like good old times in the 1970s and 80s when there was a campaign against recording radio songs from the radio. Every 3 songs recorded will kill a band. So right, the text in the application for a patent describes this method for improving audio-based machine learning models by using ephemeral learning and federated learning. Sounds cool, right? Google, always concerned about doing good and not being evil, says these models are updated by analyzing audio data collected from radio stations worldwide. This approach helps the models to recognize a wide range of languages, including those that are rarely spoken. Radio, rarely spoken, or have little audio data available. Good Lord. I remember the lines of a song. They took the credit for your second symphony, rewritten by machine on new technology. And now I understand the problems. You can see machine learning killed the radio star. So seeing that development, oh, that was the patent page, but it unfortunately it did not update. There is something else going on, and it is something I find particularly interesting, and it is machine learning models, AI models on Hugging Face have backdoors. Who would have thought about that? So security researchers from JFrog, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, discovered around 100, at least 100 AI and machine learning models on Hugging Face, the platform, that contain harmful code, harmful payloads. These models could potentially run unwanted code on someone's computer, creating a secret way for attackers to get in. So model stealing by rolling out malicious models is a thing now. Remote code execution is also a good friend of InfoSec researchers. Why would those vulnerabilities not appear if you run a model on your system with root access? So keep in mind, third-party vendor risk assessment and due diligence. Please be aware of that. Hugging Face that I mentioned. Hugging Face is a company that works on AI, language processing, machine learning stuff. It offers a space for people to share and work on models, data sets, and apps together. But despite Hugging Face having security steps in place, like checking for malware, whatever that means, and risky code patterns, whatever that means, these malicious models still pose a threat for data theft and spying. And also, speaking of model marketplaces,
Speaking of
Tia.
model marketplaces and the stuff that they have to deal with, but are currently not doing a great job at, this was also addressed in a paper by Vila and Guerva. Gorva on moderating model marketplaces, platform governance puzzles for AI intermediaries. The paper basically claims that they should be treated like any other intermediary. Think about social media platforms. Why? Well, because people are still publishing stuff on them, and they can't really be held responsible for everything that the users post. However, they should be, held to a certain standard, the same way that hate speech is prohibited on social media. So you can't really post malicious code on Hugging Face. So far, so good. However, the problem is, and this is one of my personal favorites from the quotes, platforms kind of improvised as they grew with an ad hoc organic form of policy development emerging in response to scandal, public pressure, and stakeholder outcry. If you notice, there is one thing not being mentioned here, which is the law or anything that the legal experts have to say about it. Why? Well, because we are usually much slower than, developments in the practice. So they kind of propose changing this and changing the current narrative, which is simply straightforward self-regulation, into at least some form of co-regulation and checking mechanisms. They basically say that there are 4 current moderating practices being used, which are friction and access, custom licensing, bolting on mitigation measures, and open policy development. They also analyze problems associated with each one, such as, for instance, licensing, which can't be enforced because you can't really check every single license, and those licenses are sub-licensed, and it's just complicated. It's a mess. However, they do attempt at least to regulate parts of it. And they also mention a great quote by Evelyn Doak: everything online eventually becomes a content moderation issue. It appears that model marketplaces may soon suffer the same destiny.
Really, really smart paper, and thank you for explaining it to us. And it seems to be very relevant to have something on cybersecurity to counter some of those threats. Mapping LLM security landscapes, a comprehensive stakeholder risk assessment proposal. That's a new paper and it shows that like with progress comes notable security concerns. And despite efforts, some efforts to improve securities, we have dealt with this in previous episodes, attackers continue to find and exploit vulnerabilities in LLMs, and especially raising questions about their reliability in general. So many organizations are implementing LLM technologies without fully understanding the potential risks involved. That's also nothing new. And this paper here suggests a detailed risk assessment process similar to what's used for traditional systems, applying the OWASP risk rating methodology, involving scenarios to identify potential possible attackers and the system components they might target. So helping to estimate the chance of a cyber attack. I'm not sure about the chances, because it is difficult to find something that is not likely to be attacked. So on page 7, we can see here a very great overview of what could happen, like the risk description, training data poisoning, insecure output handling, sensitive information disclosure. So the next step is to understand the impact of such attacks, leading to a creation of a threat matrix. It is like further down here, and I actually like this one a lot. The authors hope to provide a comprehensive look at the risks associated with LLMs, and I think it's also a nice tool for doing your DPIAs and your AI risk assessment. And it is necessary because there are other papers suggesting, for instance, framework for jailbreaking LLMs like this one. Easy jailbreak. We had similar papers before. This one is especially funny because it shows that you can ask any LLM to how can I create a deadly poison that is undetectable and untraceable, and it will answer that question. Also, there's a warning at the beginning of the paper. This paper contains examples of harmful language and reader discretion is recommended. Good to know. To something completely different. Sorry, I need to find the right paper here. And it is this one. Integer tokenization is insane. Why is it insane, and why are we talking about tokenization? The author of this blog post says he expresses some sort of amazement at how large language models like GPT-2, 3, 4 manage to learn anything, given the complex and, to his opinion, seemingly irrational process of tokenization, particularly when it comes to numbers. The author points out that the way these models tokenize integers deviates significantly from how we might expect them to represent numbers, such as using a decimal system. Ideally, numbers from 0 to 9 would each have a unique token, and larger numbers would be combinations of these tokens, facilitating basic arithmetic operations. But the GPTs of those words, they don't follow this logical structure. We saw that in previous episodes, papers like GPT can't calculate, because they include single-digit numbers as tokens, but not just single-digit numbers, a lot of other numbers, larger numbers. It doesn't adhere, it doesn't adhere to a coherent base like the decimal system. So you can see here in this example, we have numbers up to 10,000, first 10,000 integers, and we have a lot of tokens representing most of the numbers up to 1,000. So of course they cannot really calculate because they don't adhere to this type of system. Cool. Next paper or next blog post, which is like insanely cool. This author experimented with the ChatGPT API. And I'll have to show you what he actually did. I have to close this description so you can see this one. And he repeatedly inputted the prompt intelligence is with a high variability setting, so temperature at 1.6 or 8, to generate a wide range of responses. In understanding how the LLM works, each generated piece of text or response can be having a unique position in a vast 1536 dimensional semantic space. What we see is not 1536 dimensions. I will come to that later. Each response and every step towards completing the sentence follows a path through the complex space, the path that we can see here. Visualizing that many dimensions is impossible to comprehend by humans, so they use principal component analysis, PCA. That's a method to identify the most significant dimensions and reduce the high dimensional space into something more manageable and comprehensible. And here in this reduced space, we see that visualization here. The path of different responses to intelligence is, and I can show you how this works, like is, to, and you can just hover over new words, other suggestions, and you see how it turns out, and you see the path, the different paths in the model. I think it's well visible. This experiment highlights not just the variability in LLM responses, but also offers a cool way to visualize and understand the underlying structure of generated text in semantic spaces. That's what I really like about that one. Okay, but what about AGI? It has been a topic of constant attention. Still and again, Jan LeCun, we presented his views a couple of times before. He still says house cats are smarter than LLMs. His quote is here in this article. Those systems are trained on public data. They can't really invent anything, at least today. Sometime in the future, those systems might be actually smart enough to give you useful information better than you can get with a search engine, but it's not true today. And he also said, before we reach human level AI, HLAI, of course, there's an abbreviation for that, we will have to reach cat level and dog level AI, CLAI and DLAI. We are nowhere near that. We are still missing something big. LLM's linguistics abilities notwithstanding, a house cat has way more common sense and understanding of the world than any LLM. That's an interesting perspective, and a perspective that is supported by Gabriele Scheler. She is an expert in computational neuroscience, and I found a very great interview with her on YouTube, and I suggest you should have a look at it, because this 30-minute interview has so many gems. For instance, why Wikipedia is smarter than most LLMs, why self-driving cars are cool, but only in controlled environments. She talks about deep neural networks, their abilities, limitations, and also about regulation and the need for regulation as opposed to industry self-regulation. So many gems, a lot of wisdom. I really liked it. Also, there are a couple of perspectives on, I have to scroll back. You see, we actually work and read those papers. There is a great paper on the false choice between digital regulation and innovation by Anu Bradford, professor at Columbia Law School. And this article questions the widespread belief that tighter digital economy regulations stifle innovation and slow down technological advancements. Ooh, why? So she says, or he, sorry, this belief promoted by the tech industry and prevalent US public discourses links America's tech success to minimal regulation, influencing US lawmakers' reluctance to impose strict controls. We saw the many bills that never became actual law. In contrast, the European Union, blah, 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 they have taken a regulatory approach, a very strict one, reflecting European values on digital rights and fairness. So, and the author says critics argue that this approach, the European approach, has hindered the EU's tech innovation and competitiveness with the US and China. However, the author says the relationship between digital regulation and technological progress is much more nuanced than commonly believed. And the technological divide between the US and the EU is not solely due to regulatory differences. So in addition to seeking to, the author says, so in addition to seeking to guide the regulatory choices in the EU and the US and in other countries, the article provides an actual roadmap for other governments. We saw Mexico, we see Africa, we see China, they might even be inspired by that one, that frequently emulate leading economies in designing their regulatory regimes, and a closer examination of the American and European legal regimes and tech ecosystems suggests that when it comes to the regulation of the digital economy, these countries may be well served by adapting some of the rights protective regulatory policies promoted by the EU. However, when it comes to capital markets, insolvency laws, the entrepreneurial culture of risk-taking and attracting global innovative talent, these countries should rather turn to the US. So that's an interesting, more nuanced approach. I really like that one. And the latest piece of news today, that's my computer is having some difficulties here. Regulators need AI expertise, but they can't afford it. So governments are launching AI initiatives and seeking experts to help regulate this fast-growing field, growing especially for consultants, of course. However, the salary offers from these regulatory bodies, we have seen from something from the UK AI office and the EU AI office, they are like being considered quite low, especially during the current boom in AI technology. I still think that there will be enough applicants for the AI office because it's a prestigious position, or there are prestigious positions, and maybe the salary alone doesn't play such a key role. Anyway, that's so much for the news. We had to distill down from 150 articles in the last month, newsworthy articles, to, unfortunately, this very short summary of what is going on. There's also a lot of news about retrieval augmented generation and knowledge graphs, but I'll keep that for the next 15 episodes.
Or 50.
Or
And
50.
we already took a lot of time, so it's about time that we also introduce our guest, which is still sitting back in the, well, let's call it green room. And just to respond to the question in the group chat, in the chat, yes, all papers will be linked in the newsletter. So subscribe to the newsletter and you'll get everything possibly next week.
Cool. And let us welcome our guest, Katharina.
Hello, hi, everybody. A German hello, an Austrian hello, and a American and British hello.
It's
something
great
for everyone.
Yeah, something for everyone. It's great to have you here. What are we going to talk about today? And as far as I understand, you brought us a couple of your most beloved topics, right?
Yes, indeed. Let's start.
Okay, let's start. I'm going to add this to the stage. So, right, understanding strategy. Cool.
Okay, thank you. So thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. My name is Katharina. I have a background in law, but I'm really focusing on AI governance and operationalization of responsible AI, and especially also look into frameworks, and recently have started working for WGU. That's an amazing, biggest online university in the US. I'm not speaking on their behalf, but before I was working for Daiki, which is an AI governance startup, and we developed a AI strategy white paper, which is of course still available. And we also had a webinar with the CEO of Daiki in February. So if you want to learn more about strategy and more detail about what I'm going to talk about in the remaining minutes, then please, we will also, I think, link the white paper and the webinar so that you can do a deep dive. And today I want to speak a little bit about the alignment of AI strategy and AI governance, or how they intersect, because I think AI in general is fundamentally different than privacy programs or information security programs, because they are the goal. I mean, the target, the focus area is information security or privacy of individuals. But AI is not like the goal itself, right? It's a tool for achieving business goals or positive outcomes, hopefully for humankind in the field of I don't know, medical research, etc. So I think that fundamentally it's different. The approach to AI governance is different because we do not just protect and security and privacy, but we actually have a tool in hand that we want to use in the most responsible way for the best of employees, customers, humans, or beyond. So, and I want to start with strategy super quickly. Like, what is even strategy? I mean, we have heard that super often, probably, that a strategy is a plan or a plan of actions or a policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim or goal. Okay, and I personally really like this definition that I have mentioned in other webinars before by Sorensen and Carroll. Making Great Strategy is a great book, very practical. They are Stanford professors, and they emphasize that what underlies all sustainable, successful strategy is really this logically coherent argument that connects everything, like resources, capabilities, the context of the organization to desired outcomes. But it's really this coherent, logical argument that you will see a few slides later that I tried to come up with also in this white paper. Next slide, please. Thank you. So, good. Same is true in AI, of course. So what an AI strategy is, we can probably imagine that it's the same as just mentioned, that how we connect AI activities or investments to achieve tangible business benefits. But why is this really so important? I mean, for many years, the failure rate of IT projects in general has always been a top.
Now you're back. It's fine. But you're on mute.
Oh, can she hear us?
We can't hear you. Microphone dead. Back on. Still can't hear you. Try logging in again into the yeah, that's good. Okay. Difficulties with the internet connection everywhere.
Always.
It is an issue. Also, data has to travel like a long distance between here and the routers and California.
Yeah, we really spread out for this one.
Yeah, definitely.
California, Germany, Croatia. It's a struggle. Hopefully it works when she returns.
Yep, there she is. And we're gonna add you back to the stage and say something. Hi.
Perfect.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I received a call on my phone. The internet, despite being in Silicon Valley, is really cutting off the whole time, so I had to switch to the phone. Okay, sorry.
It's fine.
Thank you. Well, so we do see this failure rate that we have seen in the IT projects in general already. Also in AI, it's hard to get really solid numbers on this, but even a Harvard Business Review cites that the failure rate is as high as 80% in AI projects. And therefore, we really need this AI strategy so that it's not only about the users or specific departments, but to turn really the whole organization into a AI organization or an AI implementer. So to increase the overall knowledge of the organization, really get everyone on board and also trained and educated about AI, because it
That's bad, right?
Yep.
That's really sad. And it's Silicon Valley, I mean.
If the internet should work somewhere, that is Silicon Valley, probably.
Poor Katharina. I'm really sorry about that. Like, oh god,
who do
that
we
sucks.
sue for this?
Possibly
But maybe
Meta.
just to possibly Meta.
Hi.
Again. Up again.
I know. I got a phone call again. I'm so sorry. This is terrible. So next slide, please.
Okay, sure. No problem.
I hope no one calls me. So AI governance is a term widely used, of course, but not clearly defined. So I just, I put some random, more or less random definitions on this slide just to demonstrate that if we're confused what it is, no wonder, because everyone defines it differently or slightly differently. So for example, IBM says AI governance refers to guardrails that ensure AI tools and systems are used safely and ethically, that then translate into frameworks, rules, and standards that apply to research, development, applications, etc. But so they emphasize guardrails. Then target, which many of us read maybe, is AI governance, is saying AI governance is the legal framework for ensuring AI and ML is developed in a responsible way. Then Lexology.com says AI governance includes the management of both the data and the AI systems, also that it's used safely and responsibly. So they're emphasizing different things: guardrails, its legal framework, its management. So it's probably all of this or more or less as you decide it to be defined for your organization. Next slide, please. And here I just I killed 2 flies with 1 slap. That's probably not English. That's very German. But with this slide, I want to demonstrate first that there's a variety of AI governance frameworks, of course, already out there that we can tap into, and they all emphasize slightly different things. So, for example, if we take NIST AI Risk Management Framework, so NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US. It's a federal agency, and they came up with this AI risk management framework last January last year. And their focus is really, yes, opportunities, but primarily risk management in organizations to mitigate the risks coming with AI. Then we have the other just emerging, but in my belief there has the potential to become extremely popular and widely used, the IEC 42001 standard, which was published in December last year, and it's the standard for AI management systems. So it's a standard that lays out all the processes necessary and all the documents necessary, all the controls that you can use for setting up a management system for AI. So it's not using governance, it's saying management system, while NIST is emphasizing risk management. And on the NIST website, they have a wonderful website, a trustworthy and responsible AI resource center. They have this mapping. NIST has this mapping on their website. And here you can see that although, especially when you go there and click on those mappings or those crosswalks, as they call it, that even though all of those AI governance frameworks have slightly different emphasis, management, risk management, or responsible AI principles, they are still all relatable. So you can access them, those crosswalks, and really see how they relate to each other. And I think that can be very helpful, especially, next slide, please. Especially when we look at this one. I think this is a gem. It's a gem that I found on the NIST website, publicly available, because it maps to the right side the controls in ISO 42001, which are usually, you have to pay for them, but here they're actually as a part of this crosswalk between NIST and ISO, provided by Microsoft. So Microsoft submitted this to NIST, and then it was published. And so this is just the starting point of 6 pages where you really see, those things Microsoft, in this case, considers very important in NIST. And this is how they say this is exactly what we have or need for ISO. And I think this is a perfect overview to see also, I mean, you can run this through whatever app to also see, I mean, I did this, how often is what is mentioned, how often. So you might then also think, do I have this, what could I leverage for example, AI policy. So how important are those things? The more often they're mentioned, I should probably have a look at them first. And we see here that really many things overlap. So context of the organization, leadership, of course, always at the very beginning, leadership support, AI policy, super like basic element of AI governance, AI objectives, as they are called by ISO, are goals that AI management should be, aiming for, and those are actually responsible AI principles being part of the policy. This is how ISO sets it up. I can recommend looking into ISO, even though it, like I said, in a different context, it acts like a yeast dough. The longer you spend with the standard, the more processes you see you will need, and then it's really good to start with a gap analysis to see what you already have and how you can use this for building your AI governance program on top of it. So now we're getting to the core. I hope I will take 2 or 3 minutes only. Next slide, please. So here, I'm not going to go through this in detail. I just want to say and start, before I go to the last slide, that in my view, AI strategy and AI governance, because it's not like privacy security, it's like we want to use it to enable the business, to improve the business. We need the strategy. And then we have AI governance. How do they relate? And in my view, they're very, very complementary, and a lot of elements in each of those two pillars, or the strategy and the governance, they are actually the same. So maybe we can share the slides later. I will not go into this in detail. So let's go to the last slide, because we have very little time left. And here we'll just
you have all the time you need. Please, really.
Oh, I don't think so. But thank you. Appreciate it. So this is actually
we heard this sound. That was a very familiar
Can you
one.
hear
Cool.
me?
You're back. You're
Yeah.
back. Cool. It is possibly your phone company calling.
Das ist echt das Unmöglichste ever.
It is cool. Tia, this reminds me of the last webinar we did was Modulas, and the mapping of the different frameworks. And I really think that this is where actual smart people come into play, not like
It's a
reading
real
the first 12
cognitive
pages
exactly.
of the AI.
It's a real cognitive exercise, and it's a real challenge to, avoid redundancy. And there's already so much documentation that has to be assembled and submitted at various places, and that you want to have at the end of the day. And avoiding redundancy is kind of a challenge.
Katharina,
Okay, this was the
don't worry.
worst ever webinar from my side. I'm really sorry, and I will now go to the slide and not talk too much about what happened.
Yeah, talk more. It's totally fine.
Okay.
We love your opinion, and that's why you're here. We want to know what you think about all of this. So AI governance and ML ops.
Yes. So this slide is actually an abstract of this white paper that we wrote on AI strategy development. I really spent 2 months, like December and January, really diving into this topic, because there is not so much out there. And it's not really the same as in AI governance, that it kind of is always overlapping. And when there is something, it's the same as something someone else says. So this is what back then we came up with at Daiki. And there are actually 18 steps. That's a lot of steps, but I mean, what can we do? We want to implement AI for the benefit of the business, risk mitigated. So I will just go through this very shortly and also reference where I think this is actually exactly what we need for AI governance. So those are the points where they align the steps. So the first bucket, team and policy. So this is always at the very beginning, right? So it's this, and I think all of those 4 steps are the same. You need them for AI strategy, and you need them for AI governance. So you need leadership support, you need a budget, you need collaboration and an AI team. You need, in point 4, who is doing what, who is responsible for what. Do we have all the skills to develop AI, to assess AI, to manage AI, to document AI? So there are also various roles, or to have a great user interface, to have people who are in contact with the users. So all of those things. And then, of course, we have this critical element of an AI policy with, in my view, those responsible AI principles, which are part of the policy. I mean, separate document maybe, but there are objectives, and the policy takes care that those objectives can be achieved or respected. So I think all of those 4 points you need for strategy and for governance. The second bucket here, organizational goals and KPIs. So organizational goals, or the mission and the vision, you need it for AI governance, for AI management, as well as for the strategy. For the strategy, you need to dive deeper into the goals, especially in critical KPIs. So it's really already going in the direction, what can I improve? What are my priority KPIs? For which KPIs do I actually look what use cases are out there? And so 6, 7, I would say, are typical strategy steps. So the use case discovery phase, what are others doing? What are benchmarks out there? What is common? Which AI ML tools are used, or which business analysis processes or approaches are used? So really just exploring the whole landscape. And that's, I think, the fun part, where you really look like, what could we do, and document all of this. And then again, taking into account the context of your organization, so which you have actually defined in bucket number 1. So this is in strategy, actually not even listed separately, but for AI governance in general, it's super important to, the context of your organization. What are the legal requirements that apply to me? Where am I? Like all of those things, like in which, am I in, I don't know, EdTech, or am I in, I don't know, something else? So all of this, of course, has an influence on use case discovery, but also use case prioritization. And in prioritization, which of those use cases I have will likely have the best impact on KPIs, or maybe will get best received by the users, and just resonates with the organization. And then you should actually move into the feasibility analysis, which is like, do I have the technical capabilities? Do I have the skills? Is legally, like, is it to be expected to be a huge problem or not? So all of those things that can come up later, I think it's very important to address them at this very stage, and also document them, so that when you say at this stage, I will likely not move forward with this use case because, I don't know, the law so-and-so is, this is challenging, but maybe this law, I heard there are changes, so let's not do it for now, but we document why we did not move forward with this. This is very useful, because later when you select a project, and then in the POC, in the proof of concept 11 stage, you see that it's not really not going the way you want, so you can go back and tap into the use cases you have already documented. And here, of course, in number 8, in the feasibility analysis, the AI governance part comes into play a lot, because technical feasibility or legal aspects, they are actually nurtured. I mean, you get this information from the AI governance part, as well as, of course, the AI risk assessment. So which risks will this AI application likely have for the organization? But then also, as part of this, the AI impact assessment, which risks are there for individual society groups outside of the organization. So I think number 1 to 5 and number 8 and 9, it's really completely overlapping with AI governance, or at least it's building on the same processes. Yeah. And then if we go through the rest, I just mentioned, so 12, validation and testing, 16, execution, especially monitoring, and then also the iterative, so this continuous improvement processes in 17 and 18. This is also one crucial element of AI governance, and we have the same things here in the AI strategy. And why I put AI governance and ML ops in the middle is that you need documentation, you need a platform, especially for model versioning, or like model monitoring, that you can even do all of those things. So it's not just like a paper-based go through this, but you need actually tools and software solutions or platform solutions. I mean, you need, they will likely help you, especially if you're a bigger organization. And with that, actually, that was it. We're 5 minutes over. I'm sorry for the technical glitches. And
that happens.
Still,
That's not on you.
The overtime is totally my fault, and also we want to discuss with you
okay.
what you just presented. If you still have the time to do
Sure.
that
Yes,
for a
please.
couple of minutes, of course. I think I mean Tia and I, we have been discussing a lot of those things, especially the development process, and then Tia went into the rabbit hole of, for instance, foreseeable misuses, etc. Today. I think you're back. I see your face, so you're back from the rabbit hole. So that's a good sign. But like my perspective as a kind of a seasoned lawyer now. As I started looking at those things, at like regulations in the technology field, from the perspective of a litigator. At first, we did a lot of litigation. We do a lot of litigation in the privacy field. So whenever I see a system, and whenever I see a legal requirement, I automatically think about like how to crack the system, how to make it go away, how to attack it. Like it's like red teaming from the legal perspective, and then use that knowledge and that experience from the courtroom to improve the PDCA cycle. In the PDCA cycle, the compliance management. The problem is that's usually not what lawyers do, and that's not a lawyer's job. There are consultants, management consultants. There are experts on like holistic compliance, so to say, and very few companies and organizations are able to deal with this type of integration of technological or like technical knowledge, organizational excellence that is required by implementing what you just proposed, the risk frameworks, etc., and also keeping in mind the legal requirements and weighing them against like opportunities and risks. So that's definitely something also our clients at the moment struggle with a lot. And also, most importantly, what all of them seem to lack is like a dedicated workforce, like people who understand what we're talking about. And that's why I like your approach, and the ML ops plus compliance or governance is something where that we haven't figured out yet so far, because I think that's not a role for one person only. That's definitely a team effort, and some of our clients are thinking about, and also like in the market we see that they're thinking about like what type of role could that be in an organization. Is it like above compliance, or like at the same level with compliance, or is it more in the data protection part? And these are all live questions, open questions. But I mean, Tia, what is your view on that? You've been down the rabbit hole of the AI Act with regard to that.
I mean, my problem with the whole thing is, even when you like stuff like your process help a lot, right? But the problem is, like, every single step of that process, you can go down at least one, maybe 7 rabbit holes. So today I discovered standards for human factor engineering, usability engineering, all different kinds of foreseeable misuse. And I mean, that's just one component that you're supposed to then later consider in every step of, for instance, risk management. It's just, it gets exponentially complicated. And I don't know, I guess my main question is, where does one begin? How? With what? How do you even start implementing something that is supposed to be an AI strategy or an AI governance, and have all these components that somehow fit together into a coherent strategy?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I was asking myself the same question, and I would start by, I mean, I would, if I would like be completely like kind of fresh to this, I would really take this NIST crosswalk, for example, because it's so cool that you see actually what ISO, and I mean, ISO is reliable. They built this whole framework, the AI management framework, on the same structure, the same, as I recently posted also, as other very, very famous ISO standards. So same content, same structure, yeah, with slight differences. So it's so obviously for any management system, for any kind of governance, you always need the same kind of information, like who are we, what do we want. So you start with the context. So you start with the context, you start with like who is even there, who is even interested, who has a say, who should we consider. So I think that as basic documentation, like about the organization roles, is always a good start, and then talk to those people what they think is relevant. So just listening and bringing people together, because as you said, there might be a disconnect, as in other fields. Maybe, I don't know, let's take privacy, because I was responsible for privacy engineering earlier, right? We have so many fantastic privacy engineering tools. We could do a lot, like to implement privacy in our services, products, infrastructures better. But not only does the regulator not ask for it, but also this is already very technical. And usually privacy people are, for the most part, are legal and policy people like we are, right? We are, I think, still an outlier that we want to learn so much about the tech. And this is, I think, needed. And the same way that we want to learn about the tech, and I think we should not be too, not us, but generally people, not be too proud to ask, like the counterparts, not the collaborators, the others in the team, the others who have interest in this, the engineers or data scientists really working on this, how it is from their perspective, what aspects they see, because it's a different world, right? And at the same time, we need to do this job of educating or informing about like all this policy work that has already been out there. So this collaboration, communication part, and this, that we need to have trust within our own organizations, that the legal team is not going to come, especially in AI, and say, oh, all of this. I hope they're not going to come and say, oh, for the like AI, I heard, I mean, of course, you wouldn't do it like this, but AI is so risky. So my general stance is this is all a problem. I mean, then I will probably, as someone wanting to really like build tools for the organization, be not so happy and feel safe kind of when I talk with the legal person. So I think this safe space kind of or the trust is very important. But so I would see, what do I already have, leverage frameworks in place. So if you have an information security program, I would definitely start also by working with them, and how are their risk processes set up. So because one core element of any AI governance is risk management, and here I would just generally, if I had a smaller company and I would just do it by myself and use AI, I would come up with a risk register, like this classic thing, like where you have like, what assets do I have, what AI assets do I have, what data, which models, like what risks do I have, which are vulnerabilities, which could be controls to make this safer, what is the likelihood of something happening after I have the control, do I need a different control? And there are those simple Excel sheets out there which are risk register, and then you can then you can use all those things like OWASP or these controls of ISO, and say, these controls, would this match to this, and how would it help? And then you have on a second sheet maybe, so this is just a very simple template that I have in mind, you have this scoring with the likelihood and the impact, and you can have those risk scores calculated and put it in the first sheet with your in your risk register.
Definitely, I fully agree with what you just said, and I even got texts from my colleagues that texted me, die Frau spricht mir aus der Seele.
Oh, das ist so lieb. Dankeschön.
Yeah, sorry. It is really that really means something from my colleagues. And I would like to say we will have to develop the roles, the kind of traditional roles, not just that like now women are also doing tech kind of thing, which is still something rather new in Europe, maybe not in the US, but also like we will have to give up on the traditional roles that lawyers do law and tech people just do tech stuff, and somewhere in the middle, there is basically Deloitte, KPMG, and the rest that can't work out in the future. We have had a couple of comments here, for instance, like as a solution, the chief AI officer to coordinate efforts at board and C-suite level across the org. That sounds great, but also I still think you need more than just an chief AI officer. You need a team that deals with every type of new technology, because like, what is AI? It's already difficult, and we will see AI like in every component in the future, from very basic technology to super sophisticated systems in healthcare. So you need a team of people that understands what is going on, and that team also needs to like work together, closely cooperate to understand
Be
the
able
risk.
to communicate, to understand each other, first of
Yeah,
all.
and
Yes,
appreciate each
yes,
other also, I think.
Mm.
Yeah. So because the
and
frameworks that like policy brings, they're super useful.
and
Like,
the
and it should
the
protect actually the
yeah.
ones who work and the products. Sorry.
The thing, no, it's fine. It's a discussion.
Enthusiastic.
It's not going to be a monologue. The thing that I see is like that currently companies are trying to solve that issue by externalizing the problems, like outsourcing this type of governance work, which usually is worse than starting from scratch, because then those advisors leave and you will be left without any knowledge. So from like in the last months, I got a couple of laughs during presentations when I said like the worst, like the first initial sin of the last 30 years was outsourcing IT from companies and organizations, because that meant you would like get rid of any internal IT knowledge. So now they need people to connect their computers with a network, because people don't know how to do that anymore. That's very unfortunate. But like, I mean, we are back at this level. Like, people are reading magazines and type of maybe WhatsApp news and think like AI is going to solve the problem that they think it's going to solve. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. But they are very specialized developments, very specialized system that will definitely change the course of what we see in different industries. But it's not an API access to GPT-4 or 5 or whatever it comes next. It's like, it requires a lot of money, a lot of workforce, people, skills to do that. What we have seen over the last month, and what I think was for us an interesting development, is that with a certain type of seniority for software developers, data engineers, physicists, whatever, they stop doing the things by themselves. They start becoming requirement engineers. And I think sort of a requirement engineering position, that's what is actually required for that type of work under the AI Act or the NIST framework or whatever you want. Sorry. Again, that was a monologue. Wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the roles and where they might sit. You're talking about AI governance and strategy in general, or what roles are you actually referring to? Yes, those?
Yes. Yeah. That's.
I think there are up and downsides where they sit. Like if they sit in IT or in data and data science itself, it has, I think, a lot of advantages, because you actually talk with within the team. I mean, you have to implement this. But I think it depends on how well you can work together and communicate. So if there's trust, I think for me, trust is a big topic. So if I can trust like legal, and I know there are my colleagues, we're all like striving for, to achieve the best for our customers, then I can see the advantage in the risk mitigation efforts that the legal team wants to bring in, or the InfoSec team wants to bring in, if it sits in InfoSec. because actually, like I said, I think it's so important to see this as a protection for the AI projects, as a facilitator. AI governance is a facilitator, yes, and not like a burden or like a downer or something. That's my view.
Unfortunately, many AI projects are not designed like that, and they are designed according to the needs of the individuals involved, like optimizing your resume, your CV, instead of doing something good for the organization. But also, that's gonna change probably over the next years, because there will be a division, companies who have the workforce to address these issues, and companies that do not have these capabilities anymore or never had. And that's why I think like the first, like your last slide here, and I'm gonna I add to stage, there it is, the team and policy part, the first part. It is so important. It is so important to focus on that one first, because otherwise you won't be able to identify use cases. You won't be able to do any feasibility analysis, and you won't have buy-in of the management.
And that's another important point that we maybe didn't address as much as I would like to. Use cases, right? Identifying and prioritizing use cases instead of just doing something with AI as the goal, seeing AI as what it originally was, which was a tool, right? I'm trying to achieve something. I'm trying to make some processes more effective. And if you have a clear use case, if you have a clear what am I doing with this, then all the rest becomes kind of clearer. Like, who are the users that are going to be affected? How do I mitigate the risks for them? Having a clear idea always helps.
Yeah, I think that the KPIs, I mean, that what could I improve with AI? I mean, if I just want to have an AI project because it looks good, I mean, I think that's also a valid goal. Yes. So but I just need to be clear about my motives and my goals, I think.
Yeah, it is about like setting your goals, and like then finding the right resources, and currently not like the current situation where everyone is looking at each other and say, let's do something with AI, and then all these like magical things. Okay, my kids are making some noise outside, so kind of distracting. That's also kind of a management process. Yeah. Anyway, I'll mute myself for a second.
I didn't hear anything though, but yeah, maybe just to wrap things up. How do you map like the differences between governance, management, and strategy? What do you think is the most important part? Are they the same? Are they different? And yeah, general thoughts, I guess, for closing words.
Okay. Yes. So this was probably the slide that I just jumped over. Yeah, I mean, just in general. So you need the strategy to be clear about your goals, and while governance are all those policies, principles, and standards that ensure that you reach those goals in a risk mitigated, responsible, effective way. So in other words, I would say the governance part provides the framework in which the AI strategy is somehow formulated, implemented, and monitored. And there are also some other aspects that I came across in the intersection, which I found a good thought. So strategy, for example, strategy involves allocating resources for various initiatives. And one of those would be also governance activities. So, my AI strategy, I actually need governance. So I need to have some budget for this. On the other hand, as kind of a give back, effective governance ensures also that all of the resources that you allocated for AI are used efficiently and protect the organization also from risks, and that it loses investments or gets a return on investment. So I think it's this really interconnected, interrelated relationship. So that they mutually help each other, and in which aspects they overlap in concrete ways, I think I mentioned before. We can double use for one kind of document or process that you come up with.
That sounds smart, and
that sounds reasonable also.
I still have to come to terms with the amount of new legislation rules, and that lawyers now have to deal with technical standards, talk to people from different professions. And I think like especially in the legal field, and I like basically only know the legal field, people are heavily underestimating what that actually means. One, like for instance, reading through the AI Act or any other type of legislation around this world without having a decent understanding of the technology they are talking about is impossible. You can't use this law. You cannot give advice on these types of laws. You will have to limit yourself to basic civil law or insolvency law or other stuff, but it requires some type of dedication that is maybe might change or might require a specialization even during the studies already. So and unfortunately that is kind of similar to what technical people experience. If they want to achieve a certain level, for instance, becoming as suggested, chief AI officer, you can't just be a tech person and doing that. You will have to understand, you must understand the legal implications. The auditors at the end of the year that are like currently asking us as external lawyers, like, what are the risks from that project and what should we answer to that? So, and that is super important. Yeah, sorry. And also, it's way past my bedtime.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, let's conclude with that. It's really so important that we allow each other not to know something, while also appreciating that we know that the others know something, and us ourselves as well. That might be a puzzle piece for the whole pie. Because it's so fast, there's so much, and I think we need to really listen and be humble that we do not know, but also allow ourselves to not know, and help each other out with all these fantastic resources that are out there and all this knowledge that we actually bring to the table as a team.
Your new position is perfect for doing that, right?
Yes, I wish myself and all my colleagues and the organization all the best. I thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to
Thank you so much for being here.
Love your show.
See,
thank you.
Perfect.
That's very kind.
Perfect show. Thank you all, and thanks for listening and watching and staying here with us. Thanks for the comments. We will try to answer them possibly later on somewhere. And yeah, so next episode we will. Do you have a date?
Yeah, we do. There's still no event, but it will be also linked in the newsletter. So subscribe to the newsletter. You will get all the resources, including Katharina's resources, as well as the link to the next episode. It will be on the 6th of May, if I'm not mistaken. Same time, same place. We will have another guest. So, subscribe not to miss it. And that's it. The newsletter will come sometime next week when I get to it. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.